and welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Mel and I am a yarn dyer living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. If you are a new viewer, then hello, and if you are a returning viewer, then welcome back and thank you for watching. This one should be relatively short because I only have 3 objects to actually show this episode. One of them is a finished object and 2 new cast-ons. I believe they're both new cast-ons since my last episode, and no acquisitions that I can think of. I tell a lie, I have one, but I'll have to go and fetch it from the kitchen because it only arrived yesterday. So I am wearing my finished object for this episode, and it is my Arboreal sweater by Jennifer Steingass. It is completed. Well, I say completed. I realised when I put it on that I haven't actually woven in my ends, which I had completely forgotten about. So I have that yet to do. But other than that, it is finished. It is all knit. It is all off the needles. And I absolutely love it. I have been waiting to wear this till after I could record so I could keep it looking really new. Although I guess if I'd gone to wear it, I still wouldn't have been able to wear it to town like I was planning to. But there we go. Oh, well, I could have, but you know, don't look too close. I absolutely love this pattern. This is a pattern by Jennifer Steingass, who does quite a number of designs of colourwork yoke patterns. This is the original colour it is shown in, which is a dark blue with a light grey, and I believe my mum is actually going to knit this sweater too in very similar colours to the original design. It is supposed to be knit with a DK weight yarn, which this sweater is. I've changed the gauge slightly, but not by much, only a fraction. I tend to, a lot of the time, change gauge from what the pattern originally planned, mostly with anything that isn't a fingering weight. Fingering weights are usually fairly standard. This one is supposed to be knit at a 20 stitch gauge, 28 rounds to 4 inch, and I've done 19.5 stitches to 28 rows, so it's very, very close. And she recommended a 3.5mm needle for the rib and a 375 for the main stockinette parts and colourwork. I've used 375, like she said, and the only difference is I used a 3mm needle for my rib instead of a 3.5, because 3.5 isn't a huge amount of difference once you get above sort of a 3mm needle size. So yeah, I didn't feel that it was going to be tight enough. I will stand up and show it to begin with, and then I'll talk about the slight changes that I did make to when I was knitting the garment. So as you can see, I've done it in a kind of like a heathered tweedy burnt orange for the main body, and a like an oatmeal-y colour for the colourwork, so it's quite autumnal. It has a bit of waist shaping, not a huge amount, but just a bit, just to kind of give it a bit of shape so it isn't just kind of boxy. And I haven't done the sleeves as fitted as the original design, but it has got full length sleeves, and I've made them, you know, so that when I put my arms down they sit, you know, they're just skimming my knuckles, which is as I like it for a cozy sweater. And I have a short cuff rather than a long cuff, so that it does fall over the hand rather than kind of cinching at the wrist. The yarns that I've used are 2 colours of one particular yarn, and the yarn is the Drops Soft Tweed, and I have used the colours 18, which is Carrot Cake, and Cookie Dough, which I can't remember what the number is for Cookie Dough, and I used a whole ball of this and a tiny little bit off the second ball for the yoke. So basically any size smaller than mine would only need one 50-gram ball contrast, but I just needed that extra few yards to finish the colourwork off. The changes that I made, well, like I said, I haven't made the sleeves as fitted, and I actually had to knit the bottom of these sleeves twice. I seem to have a real problem with sleeves, and the problem with this one is after I'd blocked it is the yarn, because it's got quite a lot of alpaca in it. Well, it's got some alpaca in it. It is a 50% wool, 25% alpaca, 25% viscose. I assume because of the viscose that, well, kind of like cotton based yarn, so vegetable plant based yarns usually expand that way and shorten that way during the blocking process, generally speaking. Alpaca will lengthen that way and narrow that way, and yeah, so I thought that would happen with this, but the first time I blocked this sweater, it grew considerably in length. It grew a lot in length, and the sleeves grew a lot in length. Actually, remembering about it, I've actually reknit the bottom of these sleeves twice. It grew huge. It was like 6 inches too long or something like that. No, I've reknit them once. I'll come back to that. And I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? Do I rip out all the bottom rib and reknit it? And obviously reknit the bottom of the sleeves, and I wasn't sure what to do. So I left it till the next day, and then decided I was going to reblock it and see if I could reshape it to fit better. So I only blocked from the yoke down over, because what I wanted to do was kind of reblock the garment widthways, so that would help shorten it, and same with the sleeves, that I kind of widthways the sleeves to shorten them. But I didn't want to widen the yoke, because I didn't want it to be too broad on the shoulders. I wanted it to fit nice. I certainly didn't want to make it any bigger. So that's what I did. I reblocked it, and I kind of pulled the garment out sideways, and the sleeves especially, but being careful not to catch the upper part of the arm that I didn't want to make too bulky on the shoulders. And it did help. It means the sweater is a little longer than I originally had planned. I'd hoped to have it kind of hip crease length, maybe a smidgen more, but it's probably an inch or two lower than I originally planned, but certainly shorter than the 4 inches that it had grown the first time. Probably if I had blocked the whole sweater and had not minded about widening the yoke, I could have maybe got a little bit shorter, but the length is now, you know, comfortable. It's fine. The sleeves, I thought, oh, that's okay. They're much shorter. They were kind of up here. I can cope with that. That's no bother. And yeah, so I thought, oh, that's fine. I'll leave it. And it was only when I tried it on to think about wearing it out one day, when I was going into town and I wanted a warm sweater on, that I tried it on and thought, I don't know, if I think they're just too long. I'm going to be pushing them up all the time. Even when I want them to be cozy, they're going to be kind of bunched up. So I left it another day or two and decided just to pull back the sleeves. I think I pulled back 5 inches, knowing that I would have to reknit the inch of the cuff. So there's about 4 inches less length on these, which shows how much longer they had grown. And that's after I'd shortened them, so they had been considerably too long. So this yarn grows, it grows lengthways, which is something I have to take into account on another project that I'm going to show you, because I'm using the same yarn. The other change that I made was the neckline. Now, I'm not the only one who's had problems with this. The neckline on the design is wide. I mean, I was worried it was going to be too narrow, because when you look on the one on the pattern, it looks relatively snug. It kind of looks like this one is on me. It's not tight to the neck, but it's definitely a round neck sweater. But when I'd made it, it was huge. In fact, when I'd first cast on, I decided to do a cast on the larger size neckline than mine, and then I would account for that when I came to do the yoke and do the next size down, because I didn't want it too tight around the neck, and I was worried that this was going to be too tight around my neck, because I've got like a princess neck. I don't like too much there. And I had cast on the bigger neckline and it was huge, really huge. So I think I'd got down to the first leaf and I ripped it all out. And I started again and cast on the actual stitch count for this size that I was knitting. And, you know, just knit the rest of the sweater. But when it came down to it, I don't know if it was maybe it's when I'd finished the yoke. Oh, alpaca everywhere. It was still really, really big. And I didn't like it. It was quite gapey, but not in a good way. Not like a V-neck or a scoop neck. This was just wide. So what I ended up doing was I picked up the stitches above the colour work and I ripped out all of the neckline, which, because it'd been the cast on edge, is a pain in the behind to do. I've had to do it before and I don't enjoy doing it. If it was top, bottom up, frogging out a cast off is easy. Frogging out a cast on is awkward. But I did it. And what I ended up doing was I reduced the stitch count. I decreased the stitches, then I was knitting upwards, and I actually put a few short rows just in the back above the colour work, just a few in the main colour, just to try and raise the neckline up a little bit. It has got short rows below the yoke at the back as well to kind of help it the back rise and the front fall, so that you don't kind of have it coming up here. But I have quite a rolled shoulder neck area, so I like to give myself a little bit of extra sweater there at the back. And then I just did the garter neckline, which is as is in the pattern, and then I cast off with a stretchy bind off in pearl, so that it would roll inwards towards the sweater rather than roll outwards. And because it is garter, it's not rib, I wasn't going to do a stretchy bind off in rib. So I made those changes and the slight changes to the sleeve. I think the original sleeve has a traditional, more of a traditional cuff with 2 inches at the wrist, and I guess I've made them more slouchy and cozy instead. I'm not sure if I changed the, let me check, I'm not sure if I changed the decreases for the sleeve. No, I think I kept the decreases the same. I just did the cuff differently. So yes, that's my finished arboreal and I love it. And now I can wear it and be really nice and cozy. The second garment item, which is a garment that I'm going to talk about, is knitting the same yarn as this, because I have some of this left over, so I only need a bit more to make a second sweater. And I love the colour rather of this so much that I decided to use it to knit a jack-o'-lantern sweater. I know, it's perfect, and I also know that Halloween is less than a week away, and I am only this far with this item, so I need to get my skates on and get this finished if I want to wear it at least one day this Halloween season. This is the carved pullover, and it is a design by Emily Haver, which she is known as Real Big Stitch on Instagram. And as you can see, that's the original design, and it's quite a fitted sweater. Mine is not quite so fitted as that. And it is a lacework design on the front, as you can see, and I have made mine kind of look like hers. I've adjusted where the front is so that I do not have the eyes sitting on the ladies, which I noticed on some of the larger sizes on Ravelry had been the case, and that's not something I wanted. So yeah, I have completed well past the lacework section. I have knit to basically just under the ladies and separate for the sleeves, and have started sleeve number 1, which is kind of what I like to do. I like to get so far down the body and then kind of finish off a ball of yarn and then do the sleeves, so that I can try it on and find out exactly what I want with the sleeves. And again, I've had issues with my sleeves. But first, let's talk more about the pattern. The pattern is quite a tight gauge, and I have knit this sweater on a tighter gauge than I did the arboreal. Like I said, I did this on a 19.5 stitch on a DK weight, but it did grow a little bit. I did a gauge swatch and got a gauge of 21 stitches, 32 rounds on a 3mm needle, and she calls for 24 stitches on and 34 rounds. But the design is supposed to be knit with a DK weight, I think. Yeah, DK weight. But 24 stitch on a DK weight seems really dense to me. I have done a cardigan at 24 stitch gauge in DK weight, and that was my gnarled oak cardigan, and I hardly ever reach for it. It's not that I don't like it, it's that, first of all, it's a little snug. It's definitely a negative ease garment, but apart from that is the, because it's more of a dense, it's just, I don't know, I don't find it's comfortable. I much prefer like a drapey garment, and I'm more likely to grab it over and over again if it is. It's more comfortable and loose and flowy and things like that. And DK dense, you may as well be wearing Aran, and that's not really what I wanted. So 21 stitch gauge is comfortable in a DK weight. Anything from sort of 18 to 21 I think works really well for a DK weight. So that's what I've done. So although it is denser than this, it's not dense. And what else can I say? 3mm needle, and I think I used a 3mm needle, yeah, for the rib as well. I haven't actually gone down a needle size. So what have I done? Well, I changed the neckline ahead of time, and it is a 1x1 rib, but I've actually put some short rows in the back to raise the back up as well, again for that kind of extra length for my little rounded area. And the neckline's quite a squarish neckline, and I found it kind of sits there across the neck. I'm hoping in blocking I'll be able to just shape that ever so slightly. The lace wrap pattern was really fun to do, really easy. I do love lace, and this is a super simple lace, really easy. And I would say if you've never tried lace before, this is really easy. The sleeves. Now obviously I topped up what I had left of this with new yarn, but I didn't really think this through, so I knit this to this point with the new yarn, forgetting the fact that the first yarn is a different batch. So what I've done is, when I've started the sleeve, I've started fading in the original batch of yarn. So I've alternated skeins, and you can't tell. I'm really pleased with it, because there was a very slight difference between the batches by eye in the balls, but alternating, you can't tell where I faded it in. It's worked out really well, and I faded it, I started like here, and you can't tell. The sleeves. The sleeves, again, have been started twice. I got to maybe a little bit less than this from the armpit before I realised that my gauge was completely different. You see, I don't have 3mm short needle tips. Because I would normally use 3mm for rib, and rib I usually just use magic loop to knit rib. So when I got to the sleeves, I thought, what am I going to do? Well, I didn't think I would have time to order short needle tips and get them here and knit this, because with living on an island, our post can take a long time to get here. So if I ordered new needle tips, I would be surprised if they arrived within a week. So I thought, okay, so I will just magic loop, but I will kind of like semi-magic loop. So I'll just kind of knit on the side and keep pulling the loop out in random places and watch I don't over tighten. But in doing so, all I managed to do was make my gauge even looser than the original garment, and it looked really bad. So I had to rip it all out and start again. And I'm just knitting regular magic loop instead and just watching my gauge. It seems to be doing okay actually. I'm not sure why it's not tightening up as it would normally do with magic loop, because with magic loop you're knitting straight on straight needles rather than knitting in the round, kind of, because it's just, I don't know, just the way you hold your needles or pull the yarn. And I didn't want to make the same mistake I did when I knit my husband's Umpqua sweater, which it was kind of, I think it was the second sweater I'd ever knit, and you can see every time he wears it, it bothers me that it's a tighter gauge on the sleeves than the body. So there's like this step, and they're like snug, but then the body's quite loose. He likes it, which is fine, although maybe I'll just, like, when he's not looking, have to reknit the sleeves because it bothers me every single time he wears it. But I was worried that would happen, but it hasn't. I actually blocked this overnight. I was in bed and I thought, no, I'm just going to get up. So I got up and I soaked the sleeve, just the one sleeve, and I left it on the air last night, and I just kind of like made sure it was, you know, as it should be, because I knew they would do different yarns and different needles, not needles, but, you know, magic loop or in the round. And this morning I put it on the radiator to finish drying. You can still feel there's actually a slight bit of dampness there, but it has come out fine. And I've tried it on and you can't tell the difference at all in the gauge. I'm really pleased with it. I'm a little worried I've done the sleeves a little narrow, mind. I mean, I've tried it on, and I've tried it on over the long sleeve dress that I've got on underneath this, and it fits over a loose thick dress, so that's okay, but it's not as loose on the arms as this, or I don't think it is. Maybe I should lay them flat and compare them. So we shall see. But I would like to get a big chunk of this done, maybe this afternoon if possible, because time is running out to get this done for Halloween now. So yes, that is the carved pullover. So my final object for this episode is another new cast on. I don't think I mentioned it last time. I could be wrong. But it is a pair of Halloween socks in this awesome colourway. And I am loving working on these socks. Try and get it to focus on this fabulous pattern. Look at that. It's got some brilliant swirly simple design in it, which I absolutely love. This pattern is by Pepperknit, and it is the Anastasia socks, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. There's not a lot to show on the pattern because the pictures are really rather tiny, as you can see, but I will pop a photo, if I can focus, somewhere up here. I'll pop a photo of the socks on Ravelry, and I love this design. I think I'm going to have to make a Christmas candy cane version of this design. So I have used some yarn that I picked up at Perth Yarn Festival this year, and it is this skein of yarn by Fiberpunk, and it is Elsebar's Knickers by Marcus of Fiberpunk, and I love this colourway, and it's so fun. It really is fun, and yeah, I fell in love with it when I saw he was bringing some. I saw it on Instagram and I thought I have to have it. So I have done kind of a combination of the pattern and my usual vanilla sock. So I've done a Turkish cast on, and it is it will be heel flap and gusset toe up version, and I have partridge slip stitch on the ball of the foot because it is merino nylon and I am very heavy on my feet, so I have to reinforce this part or it will not last 5 minutes. but worth it. Worth it. So worth it. I love this. I'm using an out of focus camera apparently, but I'm using a 2.25mm needle, and I am knitting these magic loop, which I don't do for socks very often these days at all. I usually use a 9mm needle. The reason being that it's just easier to do the yarnos and knits togethers and all that malarkey on a straight needles than it is on tiny little 9-inch circulars. I have a little wee stitch marker on there, which I made with a little wee pumpkin seasonally. Actually, I have seasonal stitch markers on my calf pullover too. What have we got? We've got, what have we got? Oh no! This one should have another one of those little pumpkins on it, and it has come off. I don't know where that's gone. I'm gonna have to go hunt for that. I suspect it's when I pulled this off the radiator earlier on, or off my head, which could be off my head. And it has a little jack-o'-lantern one just there too. Is that gonna focus? There we go, little wee jack-o'-lantern. Oh, we're all very seasonal around here. So yes, that is my final work in progress, because I think that's enough to be going on with if I want to get things finished for Halloween, which I do. So I've got Halloween socks and a Halloween sweater to finish in the next 6 days. I'm not entirely convinced that it will be done. The socks will get worn all year round. The sweater will probably get worn all year round, but less so. So the sweater is really like the push at the moment, and I'm hoping the socks will be ready so I can wear them on Halloween day on the 31st, which will be fabulous. The other thing is the Halloween sock is part of the Halloween sock along. Me and Kirsty from Greneg Creations, podcast link down below, are hosting a Halloween sock along. So that's knitting and crocheting a pair of socks through October till Halloween. They don't have to be finished for Halloween, but you know, knitting Halloween socks during Halloween season. And this is my obviously Halloween sock along socks. And there is like hashtags on Instagram and share your photos and stuff on there. So if you are joining in, don't forget to post your photos. And if you want to join in, there is more information on the on both of our Instagram pages. Again, links down below. And yeah, there will be prizes, I believe. Now, I did mention I have one acquisition. So I did go to the kitchen a few minutes ago and I fetched it, and I bought one of these. And this, it's reflecting you in the, look there, you can see yourself in it. It's that shiny. Is a mini weaving machine. Like you can get vintage ones called speed weaves. It's not a speed weave. Getting hold of one of those is like getting hold of hen's teeth. And yeah, so this is a one off Amazon, and what it is these, you do that, yeah, and push them over, you can see that, and they tilt these hooks. Oh, we're going, that's because of all the shine. Where are we? Oh, oh. Doing that tilts these hooks so that it lifts one side of a strand of yarn, and then you flip them and it lifts the other one so that you can weave with your, well, this one's too narrow for yarn, but you can then weave your yarn through when darning a pair of socks, because I have about 20 pairs of socks that need darning and they take me forever to darn. So this is my way of hopefully getting around to darning all my socks, because I am running out in my sock drawer. They all need repairing near enough. So I got one of these. I've been thinking about getting one of these for a few months now. The one thing I will say about these cheap ones off Amazon is the edges are quite sharp, as I got this yesterday and these are really sharp, I am not going to be putting my sock anywhere near them. So I'm going to get out one of my jewellery files to file all these edges down. And it's pretty lightweight. I mean, it's just cheaply made, and the hooks are not as good as the speed weaves. If you could get the speed weaves or something like that, that would be, I would highly recommend. But these, they will do the job. So I've never tried it yet though. I have just watched people using them. I think there's some little pictures on the instructions. The instructions are pretty basic. I watched, is it Hannah of the Corner of Craft, do a little video where she showed how she darns her socks with one. But yeah, so you darn, let me get this to focus. You just kind of, it's a little weaving machine. It truly is just a little weaver, and you make little woven patches on your garment. So you can use this for, obviously, hand knit socks, but you can use it for your regular clothes as well. And you would use threads, or like embroidery thread or things like that. Or if you wanted to do, obviously the same as your garment, you would do, you know, complementary threads or whatever. But I will be using a regular darning needle and yarn to darn my socks, but it will need to wait until I have finished my knitting. Also, I've started sewing a dress. Yesterday I cut out the first pieces of fabric, so I have that to make too, although that's not for Halloween, but it is an autumnal dress in like a brushed cotton, like a plaid flannel fabric, and it took me 2.5 hours yesterday to cut out 4 pieces of fabric, because brain power in an afternoon is, you know, slim round here. So yes, so I have a dress, so maybe that'll be ready for the next podcast too, who knows. So what's happening? I have been doing sometimes Vlogtober this month. I have not been doing very well at all, mostly because I haven't done an awful lot. I've done a lot of rest, and that doesn't make for very good videoing, or for any inclination to be honest, when you're trying to rest. So there is that, but I am recording me doing the dress part, so that will probably be up in a vlog at some point in the next few days, I would think. And what else? What else? I'm not a lot. I'm planning to go visit Mum on the first week in November, so I have to get ready for that. And yeah, we're just kind of getting rounded off for the year now, bringing the very last of the harvest stuff from the vegetable garden. The garlic actually got replanted out today, ready for next season, because as soon as one year is over, the next is starting up. And the last of the apples came off the apple tree today, all that good stuff. And yeah, it's the usual around here. And I know that sounds kind of strange if you don't live, if you like don't grow your own vegetables or have chickens or livestock and things like that. When I say kind of the usual happen around here, I know that's kind of usual for me and for us, and it's not necessarily usual for everyone else. Yeah, I don't mean it to sound kind of like I don't know, odd. It's just I think a lot of the time we think our our lifestyle is not really that interesting. I mean, I know it kind of is, because I know when I used to watch other people's videos of their kind of lives in the country, what they're doing and things like that, I used to find it interesting. But I don't know, to me it's just kind of like, it just feels normal to us, if that makes sense. And it's not glamorous, and it's not exciting, and it's not it's just a lot of like hard work really. I don't know, I'm rambling now. Anyway, so basically life is the same as it usually is whenever I tell you whatever we're doing around here, so expect it to be exactly the same, pretty much. Okay, I think I'm just going to wrap it up now, because otherwise this is going to turn into a long podcast, and I hadn't planned on it being, I planned on it being quite short. So okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next episode. Bye bye.